Hi there. I am the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, I have Alvin. Ahnassay. Welcome to the show, Alvin.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
It's wonderful to have you on. You come highly recommended by certain mutual friends.
Yes, that was quite a surprise when I first heard about that.
Amusingly, one of those mutual friends is actually traveling on his own at the moment.
Yeah, in quite an exotic, exciting place too. Somewhere where I would love to visit at some point in my life.
Yes, I believe it's also quite cold there at the moment.
Yeah, just like where I am. Yeah.
Yes, probably not as cold as Canada, as where you were based in Canada, but yes, decently. But I have advised him to go buy a nice furry hat.
One made of.
I left that up to him to decide. I wasn't going to put anything in his mind there, and I wouldn't want to give away which country he's in exactly, of course.
And he knows who he is, eh? When he hears this, he's gonna know who we're talking about.
Oh, of course, he's going to know. But talking of traveling and such, I understand one of your hobbies is traveling as well as photography of wildlife, and I have this very cute little tiger, I think, somewhere around, which I'm scratching the nose of. What did it do to take you into traveling around? Was it in sort of a travel that you always had, or you discovered at some point?
Well, I've always enjoyed traveling, but in recent times, because of the pandemic, I found a good opportunity to travel across Canada from coast to coast. I
Wow.
did, yeah, yeah. It was quite exciting and life-changing, I'd have to admit. And I did see quite a lot of beautiful landscapes, plenty of wildlife, hiked a lot of trails. So it was quite exciting.
So when you say how wide is Canada, the trip that you took? You know, if you had to sort of
How,
draw a line across it approximately,
how wide?
how many
Oh man.
miles or kilometers?
Honestly, I don't even know. That would be a good guess. I would have to really look it up from like on a map. But the furthest, like my starting point, I left Edmonton
Okay.
in the province of Alberta, and then I drove west to Vancouver Island and did some surfing in uh, along the west coast there. Stayed in a village called Euclid and visited a town called Tofino, which has always been part of my ambition and dreams in life is to go
Okay.
surfing in Tofino. And then from that point, I traveled all the way out east and made it my goal to reach the furthest eastern point in all of North America, which is Cape Spear in Newfoundland.
You went
And
to
I did.
Newfoundland. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of mileage, I don't know. I don't know. I know I put on probably 70,000 kilometers on my car throughout the whole trip, but that also included driving back west. So after I made it to Cape Spear, Newfoundland, I did turn around and started making my way back west across Canada. So I ended up having to do that trip twice.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
decent.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's very decent. And what sort of wildlife did you see along the way? Was there anything? I mean, when people think of Canada, right, the immediate wildlife that comes to mind is moose.
Moose. Yeah, I saw plenty of moose.
What other
And
wildlife did you experience?
oh man, let's see. Like, I mean, I can just otters and seals, whales, wolves.
Whales.
Yeah,
Nice.
whales. All kinds of birds. My favorite was the puffin.
They're
That
really
was one of.
cute.
They are cute. They're like the Canadian penguin, in my opinion, and that was quite exciting because we got to travel to an island that is still in dispute about who actually owns it between United States versus Canada. But it's a park, it's a sanctuary for birds. So when we landed there, we weren't allowed to like go off on our own and explore. We had to be directed to these little bird watching huts where we stood in there and got to observe them up close, which was quite awesome.
Wow.
And yeah. And that particular experience was great because I had a full intention to see puffins right from the start of this trip. And there's certain animals that I wanted to see.
Okay.
One of them being caribou. I've never seen
Ah,
caribou in the wild, and in particular here in Alberta, they are listed as endangered, near extinct animals.
yes.
Yeah. So when I made my way out to Newfoundland, I learned that they actually have plentiful of caribou. So I went out looking for some, and sure enough, I did come across 3, and it was quite a beautiful experience. And like I ended up hiking early morning into some hills that were near a village called Goose Cove. And I got to the end point of the trail and still weren't able to see anything other than the beautiful landscape in the ocean. But I got more
Okay.
curious and wanted to go off trail to see if I can get further and see what else I can see. And I got to a point where I was ready to turn around, but I started to see something move across the rocks, right? So I zoomed in with my camera on my phone, and sure enough, they were caribou. So I started stalking them and getting as close as I possibly can to them. And they noticed me, and they didn't get scared.
Wow,
And
that's
they
interesting.
ended up walking towards me. Yeah, it was probably one of the most one of the most highlightful moments in this whole trip across Canada was that intimate experience with those 3 caribou.
How big
Um,
are they actually?
well, these ones were small. They're smaller sized deer, so they're not like gigantic like a moose. But if I were to stand beside one, I would say the top of their head is definitely shorter than me, and I'm about 6 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they're not
unless
particularly tall.
no, I could probably I could probably use my muscles and throw one over my shoulder.
I have to say, I don't think the caribou would be particularly pleased. You know,
No.
it's standing around or sitting around, you know, chewing some grass and something, and suddenly, wham! Alvin's come up behind it and thrown over his shoulder and walked away.
Exactly. Let's see.
Uh,
There's I also wanted to see a rattlesnake. We do have rattlesnakes in
okay.
Canada, particularly on the very southern end of Alberta. You can find them. So when I first went through southern Alberta on the first go around, I didn't get a chance to see any, even though I went out looking for them. But on the second round back, coming back out west, I made it an intention to go back to southern Alberta so I could see them, or at least find one. And sure enough, I came across 2. And one in particular, oh my God, this scared the hell out of me, because I was standing at a point of the trail, and it was very windy, but I did start to hear something very loud, like it was like a buzzing sound almost
Yeah.
in the wind, but it was actually the sound of the rattle. And that tells me there was a rattlesnake nearby, like, and then I ended up looking, and it was literally coiled up right beside me and freaked the hell out of me. And I jumped back, jumped on a rock, and just started taking photos from there safely, right? Like, so that
Did
was
it
quite
pose for you?
it did.
Best thing.
Yeah, I should if we ever have an opportunity, I could definitely show you some footage that I took. Like,
I would love to see it for definite.
yeah.
So going from, you know, wildlife adventures and coming across various species to the oops factor, what do you have to share with us today?
Well, I was reminded of something because I was having a couple of conversations with 2 life coaches this past week,
Okay.
and I was actually reminded of of an occurrence in my life. And this particular story, I like to title it Porcupine, Don't Stop Me Now. Okay.
That sounds interesting.
So, yes. So I've been in IT for probably a good 15 years or so.
Okay.
And I started making like a shift in wanting to do something different. Probably since 2016, 2017, I also wanted to enter into the coaching space. And
Okay.
I did ended up getting trained through Ericsson International. And I wanted to start my own coaching practice, but that has been quite a struggle for me to really launch it and get into it and transition from my full-time job into that. There was a spring in 2019. I attended a conference called Client Attraction.
Okay.
And here I got re-energized, right? I got re-energized. I started figuring out, what it is that I really wanted to do with coaching. I got excited. I came back to Edmonton feeling, reinvigorated, and started buying like workshop materials, started getting my website up. I was ready to network. I found a human resource conference that I wanted to attend in Calgary. And so I ended up waking up really extra early one morning, and it was super dark outside. It's a 3-hour drive between Edmonton and Calgary.
Yeah.
So I started driving down the highway, just imagining, the conversations and the people, and, feeling really good and excited about it. And sure enough, there was like this huge dark mound in the center of the road that I drove straight over.
It wasn't a moose by any chance.
No, it wasn't a moose. I probably wouldn't be here today talking with you if it was a moose, but it was definitely a big boulder size porcupine. And so I drove straight over it, and all I could hear was it just like tumbling underneath the vehicle.
Oh.
And I just kept going, right? I was in shock, and I just kept driving, and I didn't know what else to do. So I just kept going. But then I started noticing like a fume, like a cloud behind my car. And then my car temperature gauge shot right up to overheating. So I pulled over into the nearest town and got my vehicle checked into a mechanic shop. And they told me, like, it's a good thing you came in as soon as you did, because your car was ready to overheat and basically stall on you, break down completely.
Did the porcupine by any chance puncture your coolant reservoir?
Yes, it did. It totally damaged the front end. It damaged the cooling system. It damaged the undercarriage. There was like probably well over $4,000 worth of damage. And you could actually, like, the guy showed me too underneath, right? Like you could see all the quills just poked and punctured through different parts of the vehicle.
Yes. There is a wrong perception that porcupines can actually fire their quills. It's wrong. What happens is most of the quills, the main quills, are actually loosely embedded into the skin, and they can go into reverse very, very quickly. So they dash backwards and then they dash forwards again. And at the heat of the moment, you think it's fired at you, whereas as they just, shove themselves back into you, embed it in your skin, go forward, and it comes out of their skin, and there you are left with a leg or an arm full of porcupine quills, or in your case, a car.
Yeah. I imagine it was the cartoons that taught us that they shoot their quills out, right?
No, it's actually a perception that's been around way before cartoons. But anyway, so you didn't manage to make it to this HR thing then?
No, I didn't. No, that ended up stalling everything that I was excited for, until I ended up attending, getting more team coaching training in February of 2020. And then pandemic hit, right? So all that stuff has just been put on hold, because when pandemic came, I ended up leaving my job at the time and traveling across Canada.
Right.
And now I'm my journey came to an end, but funny enough, one of my last parts traveling across Canada, I ended up going to the Yukon. And in the Yukon, there's a lot of grizzly bears. Okay. So I was really hyped and excited. I really want to see a grizzly bear, right? And I found myself driving on a back road it goes towards a place called Otter Falls.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a part of the road where it curves and bends. And I saw a black mound again, very similar to what I saw that day, crossing the road. Okay. So I knew right away, oh my God, it's a porcupine. I was getting excited. I really wanted to take photos of it, right? It was up close. It was not dead. It was very much alive, walking across the road. And so when I stopped right beside it and I started to scramble for my phone, I looked up and sure enough, in close proximity, there was a grizzly bear standing on its hind legs, but it noticed us so quickly, it dashed into the forest. And by that time, it was already long gone. There was no chance of taking a photo of it or capturing any footage of it at all. But being able to see it in just a quick glimpse, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that porcupine distracting me, I would have been able to see that grizzly bear right off the bat turning around that corner, but I was focused on that porcupine.
So the lesson that I'm learning from this is that porcupines are following you.
Yeah, porcupine, don't stop me now. Pay attention, you know?
Got
Pay
it.
attention. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: in terms of the coaching, obviously, the first time and the second time, and it's frustrating when you get yourself hyped up for something and then it doesn't work out. What would your advice be to, based on your own experiences, if you give 2 or 3 tips, a piece of advice for people who have gone through that, how to try and remain focused or on track or actually get back into it?
Right. Well, from my own experience, and I would definitely say don't give up for sure, right?
Okay.
Especially if it's something that you very much love and recognize as a passion in you. It's just a matter of reigniting that fire inside, because I know setbacks do happen and setbacks will happen, and not to allow yourself to get stuck in the mindset that, well, you know what, I tried it once, it didn't work out. I'm just going to try something else, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
That is definitely important.
Don't give up. Don't give up is primarily the main thing. For me
Anything else?
also is just having a very strong belief that certain things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And to be okay with it, no matter what the outcome is. In my case, I could have been pissed off and upset and very disgruntled, resentful for one, the fact my car is damaged, right? And I couldn't get my coaching practice off the ground on that day that I really wanted to. And it's really set me back another year or so. But like, it happened for a reason. Whatever that reason is, it's whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
Don't let that steal your peace away from you. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm back on track. I mean, I've got to see so much of Canada that a lot of people wish they could. And so many blessings has happened and unfolded between then and now. And I'm actually back on track again. So
Good.
I'm in the process of getting the things that I need ready to launch my coaching practice as soon as I possibly can. I hired myself a coach. I'm working on getting a website. I got tons of great photos that I'm going to use as part of my branding.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm not giving up on that one.
Well, good luck with it, and I look forward to seeing it when it launches.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Alvin, and sharing your experiences and how you interact with porcupines.
If you ever want to invite me back on, I got more stories to tell.
I'm sure we can look to have a repeat with it. Viewers,
Cool.
we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. And if you ever see a porcupine, Alvin is probably not far away. Feel free to check out the rest of the Ooze Factor playlist, subscribe to the channel, and take a look at the blog. And if you would like to come on, hit the link in the description below, put in your details, and I'd love to have you on the show. But above all, have a wonderful day.